Hey everybody, it's Joric. Welcome back. I hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. I wanted to make this video as it's our first full week back in the United States, moving from Portugal to Phoenix, Arizona, Lisbon, Portugal to Phoenix, Arizona. We're actually a little south of Phoenix right now while we're staying at our son's property, waiting to get a car, get a home, all of those fun things. And there's a few things that when we've come back for vacations, they've been short trips, but living here now and transitioning back, stuff you forget about. And I'm just curious if those of you who have lived abroad and have moved back to the United States, if you've felt this. So please leave this in the comments. Some of these things are hilarious to me. Some of these are gentle reminders that my wife and I have thought about. Some of these are reminders other people have told us about. So the first thing is right turn on red. And I'll say gentle reminder that other people have told us about the honking that's gone on, because we have been used to not having a vehicle for the better part of 5 years, other than we've rented cars in Portugal to take weekend trips, or when we've done some holidays, when we've traveled to Italy, Greece, the UK, we've rented cars. But the right turn on red. So in Europe, I'm not positive every place we've been, but I think every place we've been, when the light is red and you want to make a right-handed turn, you wait for the light to turn green. Certainly the case in Portugal. So we're used to that, and kind of just get into that mode where you're not going to make the right on red. Here we have a rental car. I think probably a dozen times, either between my wife and I, the first 4 or 5 days here, we're waiting to make a right on red while someone behind us is honking. In some cases, 3, 4 cars behind us, they're all honking, saying, "Hey, take a right, buddy. Let's go. It's America. What are you waiting for?" So that's one of those that didn't really think about, because when we've come back, we've had a rental car. We used it sparingly, but we really didn't. We forgot about it. It's just something we didn't think about. The thing that we realized quickly, probably our first couple of days, and something that was so nice about living in Portugal: commercials and the type of commercials on television. And I'll say advertisements along the roadway too. I'll throw those in. So in Portugal, it's a lot of food related commercials. That's what we experienced. We didn't watch a lot of TV, but when we did, watching the news, maybe there were a couple of television shows, the commercials were often either they're food related, so different grocery stores, things like that. Here, we kind of forgot about the heavy dose and the heavy rotation of prescription ads and personal injury lawyer commercials and advertisements, especially along the roadway. Every prescription on earth heavily marketed, where you just don't see that. And I will say, not just in Portugal, but in other places we've traveled around Europe and we've stayed, usually don't have that type of marketing that's just being thrown at you for 30 seconds to a minute at every commercial. So that's something that getting some used to, just remembering, oh yeah, every prescription, every personal injury lawyer, go sue somebody and go take drugs. That's kind of the message moving back to the US. The other thing, and this is just specific to Phoenix, we left in October of 2019. Not true. We actually left in September of 2019. We spent a month on the East Coast near Philly before we flew to Portugal. But you get the feeling. Fall 2019. We move here in the summer of 2024. The amount of franchises or new franchises, so the amount of existing franchises, can't imagine Phoenix needs a new McDonald's, but there's several more we've driven by, or a Burger King, or a Taco Bell, KFC, but they're around. But also new ones, Salad and Go. We've seen them, it seems like everywhere we're going, we're seeing Salad and Goes. Seems like that's a good thing. Maybe it's a healthier option. Senor Taco. We went to 3 different parts of Phoenix and we saw Senor Tacos. even like a White Castles, which is more of a Midwest Chicago brand. I've seen a couple of White Castles now. Bucky's, which I want to say is Texas or Louis, I think it's a Texas franchise. Bojangles, we heard that there's one opening up. Those are things that we kind of forget about because in Portugal and Lisbon specifically, there's a couple of Subways, there's some McDonald's, there's a couple of Burger Kings. I want to say there's a Taco Bell, but you don't get hit on every block with a Circle K, 7-Eleven, Dunkin' Donuts, you name it. And so sometimes when we're driving and you come to an intersection and you look at all four corners of, let's say, shopping center, shopping center, shopping center, shopping center, how many franchises are in each of these shopping centers? It is amazing, and sometimes you do forget when you're living abroad that how little you're exposed to that. You get more, I'll say, more mom and pop, or just less of the franchises thrown at you. And when you do, when you're living in Europe specifically, typically it's an American franchise if you are seeing that. So it's something that is getting used to, going, okay, everywhere it's a franchise city all across Phoenix and all across the U.S. Along those same lines, I've mentioned this a few times in the first few points, driving for everything. We walked to get son and daughter-in-law's mail, which is just at the end of the block. I don't know, it's 5 minutes to walk and get it, 5 minutes to walk back. Often we see people here in the neighborhood like take scooters, or they only pick up mail with their car when they're going to work, coming back from work, and that's what we did when we lived here. But we're still trying to get in the habit of going for walks every day. So we're walking throughout his subdivision, and we realize from one end of the subdivision to the other, it's about a 45-minute walk just to get out of the subdivision. And we think about, and we were living in Lisbon, a place called Estrela Lapa area. 45-minute walk got us to Belém, which was kind of I'll call it the western suburbs of Lisbon. Or a 45-minute walk got us, to the Baixa, sometimes almost to the Alfalma area. And you think, just in your head, juxtapose how much we did with walking and how far we got and how little it's done here in the States. And so what we want to do is, so that we just don't put the weight back on quickly, I won't speak for my wife, I'm going to speak just for me, so I just can still get in the habit of walking, even though it's hot as you know what here in Phoenix. Keep walking to get the mail every day. Keep walking around the subdivision. Parking the car at the end of the shopping center so that you got to walk to go get groceries and do some of the similar things that you used to walk to go get coffee. I'm curious to see how long in my own mindset I continue to keep the walking to get someplace method, or if I just say screw it, I'm now back in the US, so I'm going to go back to my American ways, and I'm going to drive for everything. But it is interesting. We drove, I'm going to show on the map here where we are, so those of you that are not from the US or not from Arizona can see where we're staying right now. It's a town south of Phoenix called Maricopa, and on Sunday we drove up to a town called Peoria, and we lived right next door for years in a city called Glendale. And it just shows how long it took. Thankfully it was on a Sunday, mostly freeway, lots of green lights, not a lot of traffic, but it took a long time to get there. And we're just thinking about, again, driving to get everywhere, how long it takes, because we realize, and this is the next bullet point, things that you do forget about is how crappy the public transportation system is. I can't speak all in the U.S., but here in Phoenix, that's the bus system. I used to take it about 20 years ago to try to get around, and it was just so super, I'll say, janky or wonky. It's terrible. Now, those of you that live on the East Coast of the United States, and I'll say the Northeast Coast, Boston, New York, Philly, Baltimore, D.C., you're used to better transportation systems, subway or metro systems that are trains that are just, they run better and they run closer to European standards, I'll say. But out here, it sucks. There isn't a train system. There isn't a subway. There's a light rail in downtown, which I've never thought much of. But driving everywhere is just something you have to get used to again, because in most places where you live, you need to, because the public transportation has just never been built up, except for the East Coast, the way it is in Europe. So those are things that you kind of forget about, but you get smacked in the face with right away. And then lastly, this is one, because if there's I will say an addiction I have, it is probably caffeine. Drink too much coffee, so that will probably cause issues, or is already causing health issues. Going to a restaurant, getting free refills on coffee. I know that that's just a simple thing, but that's also something that when we had the server come by and do you want more coffee? And I looked up briefly and I've gone, I want more coffee. Yeah, I want more coffee. I don't necessarily. Granted, some places it's only $1 or €1 for another coffee of some sort. In Portugal, it's super cheap. But just for that one moment, it threw me. Yeah, I'll take more coffee, and I had to remember. Okay, it's free refills. Those are some things that forget about. I wanted to make a video that maybe some things aren't in everyone else's moving back or I forgot about, or culture shock videos. I'm curious, for those of you that have lived abroad and you moved back, are these some things that have hit you going, oh yeah, I forgot about that? Or what other things did you forget about when you moved back that you got, I'll say, smacked in the face with? Because the marketing of the franchises and having to drive and, prescriptions at every commercial are something that we were happy to live without. And now, well, we're moved back. We made the choice. Due to work situation, we're going to be here. Got to live with it. So I'm curious what your reaction has been when you have moved back. And it could be maybe you moved from the U.S. and you moved back to Europe. What kind of type of reaction? What things did you forget about when you were moving? I'm curious to hear in the comments below. So as always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy your travels.